The comments, opinions, and views shared during this program are of those individual Freemasons and do not reflect the official position of a Grand Lodge, Concordant Body, Appendant Body, Masonic Authority, or CraftsmanOnline.com.
Welcome back to the Craftsman Online Podcast. Yeah, it's Monday, and we are here for you, the only Masonic podcast endorsed by the Grand Lodge in New York, and we love saying that each and every week. I'm your host, Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. I'm guessing that this episode may fall into the danger of clickbait, but trust me, it's going to be a good one. First, another thing to click while you're here listening, I know. Patreon, we're on it. It's $5 a month. You get access to all of our back catalog, which actually is going to feature a subscriber extra episode with this week's guest, Metal Drew. And you can get all of these episodes without having to listen to the annoying commercials, which I apologize for that, but, bills don't pay themselves. Get the link to start a 7-day free trial to see if Craftsman Online on Patreon is the right fit for you. You'll find that link in the notes for this episode. Okay, he is the only guest so far on the Craftsman Online podcast that has his own intro music. Why? Because the dude rocks. I mean, if you're going to go by Metal Drew everywhere and anywhere, well then, we got to get the right music for you as we welcome back New Jersey's favorite Freemason and ours too.
Hey there, guys. How are you doing?
So Drew joins us on this episode of the Craftsman Online podcast to kind of talk about brothers, ironically, that are seeking light beyond Lodge, which means outside of Lodge, which, as I told you, it kind of is a very nice creamy Oreo filling here to the Oreo cookie sandwich, where we kicked off this year with Worshipful Brother Bull Garlington and his paper on Mesoterica, where we were challenging those that, hey, I got a secret. Come over here. I'll tell you the secret about ritual. And then you never really ever get the secret. You just get more distractions about it. Kind of also goes back to a podcast conversation I had with Brother John Nagy about the idea of independent study in Freemasonry. So I kind of wanted to provide that to our listeners, the framework, because there's really no better guest I can think of for an episode on seeking light than Worshipful Brother Metal Drew, because of the presence that you have on social media and the light that you share with others with what you've learned. So let's just kind of start right there, like tipping your toe in the waters of Masonic education online. You specialize in this, like all the conspiracy, all the profane stuff that is out there.
Hold on. There's my imposter syndrome coming back. Because I've said this to multiple brothers, like, especially because of TikTok, people have sent me letters or like pins from their, because Masonic wages, it's pins and coins from their grand jurisdictions. And it's like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm doing nothing but being a conduit for, as you described, what I've learned. And maybe there's a brother out there that didn't know that.
Right.
That didn't know that, Voltaire was only an entered apprentice. He never made it to Master Mason. Just to say something. For me, it started with actually my top line signer back now it'll be 10 years ago. After he signed my paperwork, he gave me a copy, or he showed me his copy and told me to buy Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Manly P. Hall, he took you right to the top level. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. And that's some heavy stuff.
Yes, literally. It's like a New York City phone book. It's a giant book. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a booster seat in my car. No. Me being the more analytical and, I guess, science-driven, if you want to even call it that, person that I am in general, not just in Masonry, just in general, I started reading this book and I'm like, holy crap, this is full of not misinformation, but just the wrong pathways to things. The one that always sticks out to me is Manly P. Hall, when he wrote Secret Teachings, was a firm believer, or at least espoused the idea that William Shakespeare was Sir Francis Bacon. That's who it is. He believed that William Shakespeare was a pseudonym for Sir Francis Bacon. He's not the only one. There was a group of people that believed that one individual could not write the volumes of work that Shakespeare did in such an eloquent way.
So a Shakespeare hoax.
Yes, in a way. And I'm like, how is this, like, where did this come from? Like, how is this a conspiracy or a hoax? Like, because growing up, at least for me, like Shakespeare was like a college level course.
Yes.
Along the lines of other historical writers, but like Shakespeare of all things, theater in general, that is their god. Like, so how are you going to claim that it's someone else?
I'm immediately going back to English literature in my senior year of high school and like getting sweats and having to remember all the terms and
I loved reading. I read Othello in high school, and I was Iago, and I loved it because of the way it was written and interacting with my classmates in the way that only a scumbag like Iago did. If you remember that play. For those who don't know, go back and read Othello. It's Shakespeare, so it's heady, but go and read it.
We'll schedule some time this weekend. I'm good.
Masonic Book Club.
Yeah. We read Macbeth when I was in my class. We read Macbeth.
So did I. And again, it's like, how is this a fake person?
Yeah, it was the witches and the conversations and the old English that
his wife and yeah. By the pricking of my thumb, something wicked this way comes. Like, yeah.
It's interesting because most people go pursuing answers from Manly P. Hall. You're one of the first brothers that I've heard that goes like, well, I
had shoved in my face.
Yeah. And it was like, well, I started reading it and then it started spawning all these questions and I had to close, thud that book and go looking for all these other places. So where did you go to find your answers on the Shakespeare hoax and what was going on with all that?
I'll be honest. Like I've said in my TikToks, you hold the universe in your hands. You have a cell phone now. There is so much interconnectivity with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of naysayers will say, oh, don't use Wikipedia. It doesn't tell you. Okay, don't use Wikipedia. Use the sources they provide, though, on the bottom of the screen. Go to where they got their information from. And I'll use that as not just in Wikipedia, but in general, when doing research for anything. Go to the source that person claims the information came from. It's either not a primary source, it was made up, and they just wanted to sound smarter.
For me, it was, I think I've told this story before, so I'm sorry to anyone that's heard it. I had a question in Lodge. The point within a circle was the first Masonic thing that came to mind. I was like, okay, well, where is this in a lodge, and how is it really explained beyond that paragraph or so that we get in the Entered Apprentice? We call it the Historical Lecture in New York. I was told to go read a book, and I was like, I'm not here to read books. So I went onto YouTube, and I found this guy called the Backyard Freemason. And the dude lives somewhere like in Montana or Wyoming, and the videos are so awesome. I hope that they're still online, and I hope to someday have him on this podcast if he's still, here with us, because he was the first little drop of Masonic education or esoteric thought that I found on YouTube that came from a trusted source. Not only was the video, the shoots of like just the empty highways and watching, a herd of sheep go up the side of a mountain while he's explaining something, but how he talked about it, it made me start looking for other sources. And I eventually got to Albert Pike wrote a very thin expose on the point within a circle, as did many other brothers. And I got that and kind of got more of the religious and traditional implications of it and started forming my own opinion about it as how it is one of the most widely sought after symbols and has such a diverse meaning that there is just no one answer to what the point of within a circle is. But to the point of our conversation here is that I think these are healthy examples of brothers looking for that light. And when you find it, as you said, like find reliable sources that are peer reviewed or trusted, and then bring that information back to somebody and have a conversation with them to not only verify that this is actually true, or they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds realistic if they don't know much about it, but also to have that healthy exchange, that dialogue, the sharing of ideas, because that's really what Freemasonry is about.
So to piggyback off of that, as with most lodges, the first officer position I held was the steward. And the worshipful master at that year literally pointed to people and said, you're doing a presentation on this. You're doing a presentation on this. It was nothing that any of us knew about. He gave me the Spirit Fire, which is like about a paragraph long example in Secret Teachings, where Manly P. Hall talks about the spinal fluid, and the pineal gland.
Okay.
And that's all yeah, exactly. And like for for a Mason that was only at the time months old into Masonry to try and to look at something like that, and again, back to my scientific mind, look at this and go, what the hell are you talking about? What is this? And then be voluntold to do a 15-minute presentation on it really kind of forced me not only into the public speaking aspect of Freemasonry, but also the more research-oriented. And I'll admit, I failed horribly at that presentation. I gave up. It was about a 10-minute presentation, and it was more back and forth with brothers than it was me speaking on the subject matter. But I think that back and forth helped me as a quote-unquote researcher for the topic, and also established my thought pattern to the brothers in what I specialized in.
The whole point of like education is you're going to go to your experience, your background. And as much as I know about you, Roman Catholic, you're kind of going back to, your religious, wheelhouse is like, okay, I know some things I can pull from here. I've never heard of that before. I've literally tried to read one chapter of Manly P. Hall's book. I have no desire to read all because it's very heady, to say the least.
Yes.
The other challenge that runs into all of this is while you're out seeking for this, especially when you don't know. Freemasonry is not like the Matrix where you're like, I know Kung Fu. It does not work that way. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm a 3rd degree Master Mason. I know everything now.
Anyone who tells you right off the rip, if they're like, oh yeah, I know everything about that ritual. I know everything about it. You're like, they are so full of it. And you can tell them that I said that because no one can know everything. There's always going to be a new angle or idea or thought that's involved. And that's what we love about this. And that's kind of the point of this whole episode, because we're told, we're promised or guaranteed something, depending on what jurisdiction is, at a certain point in your Masonic career that, hey, this is everything the lodge can show you. And now you can go out as a Master Mason, and anything you want to know about Freemasonry, it's fair game. Like, go at it.
Mm-hmm.
The title of this episode is The Unfulfilled Promise, right? Or The Unfilled Promise. It could go both ways on that. You are out there with your little cup and you're trying to catch every little raindrop of Masonic knowledge that's out there. But the thought of it is that you have thirsty brothers back at the lodge. So bring it back. Because the point that, we were talking about beforehand, and let's just get to it right here, Drew, is it does nobody any good if you know everything, but don't share what you've learned.
Yeah, I made the quote before the show started that I read somewhere where if you claim that you know all the esoteric secrets or that Freemasonry is esoteric, you're just a gatekeeper in the negative sense, not in the sense of guarding the West Gate. You're just gatekeeping secrets now. Why? We are taught, even as an EA, that we are supposed to be building not only ourselves up, but by building ourselves up, we're building up our community and it spreads outward. So how is it that you're going to go out and you're going to read Born in Blood and then, keep it to yourself, whether it's a critique or it's an approval of the book or anything? Why are you just going to sit there and read it and not share how you felt about that book with at least 2 other brothers?
That was one of the books that I read early on, and I'm like, the first half of it, I'm like, why are they talking about the Knights Crusade and Acre and all these ancient kingdoms in the Middle East and the fighting and then all of a sudden it started to make sense with, just a turn of a page. But also the other unique thing about that book is that was one of the first books I came back to lodge, and I'm like, I must have read it over the summer because that's the only time I would have had time to read, and I felt so much smarter, and I couldn't wait to talk to people about it. And they're like, well, that guy wasn't really a Mason, and this, and this are not really true about that book. And I'm like, I feel totally crushed right now. Right. I thought I could believe everything that was in a book.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? The precipice of what started this podcast discussion was over the holidays. I was going through my old iPhone before I switched over to a new one, and was going through my photos of like, what do I keep? What do I ditch? And I had snapped this picture of Worshipful Brother Andrew Hammer's book, Observing the Craft. And it was a quote, and I was like, oh, I got to share this with Drew, where he says, quote, "How many of you have felt utterly lost in this thing called Freemasonry because there seemed to be nothing of what you thought there was in it. End quote. And I'm going to ask you this question now with the reflection of being a past master, having that experience. Like, how does that land hearing Hammer's words now versus when you were a newly raised Master Mason, just kind of trying to find your way into the ocean of education?
It's almost comical because by the time you reach the East, some of us get there quickly, some of us take every chair. It all depends on your journey to the East. I was a quick worshipful master. I skipped 2 or 3 chairs because of various reasons. You still flounder. You absolutely still flounder because being a leader in general, you got to make stuff up on the fly. You have to be malleable. You have to be open to counter ideas to what you thought you were going to run your lodge like during that year. And I'll always remember the words of my secretary. If you succeeded in one thing that you had planned for your year, you won. You got it. In New Jersey, we only serve as worshipful master for 1 year. I know there are jurisdictions where some worshipful masters serve, consecutive turns for 2 or 3. And when I look at those guys, the first thought is, damn, you're in that chair for that long. But then in the other side, it's like, now you can kind of do things that you want to do because the transition period of the immediate past master and that honeymoon period is now over. Now you can really go into, I really wanted to focus on fellowship, or I really wanted to focus on the esoteric. Whatever your plan was for that year, you don't have to just focus on, okay, we've got a Master Mason, an EA, a fellow craft degree coming up this year. We've got gold tokens. We've got, the deputy visit, the stuff that has to happen during your year. Now you have that room to expand. But you're floundering in a different sense. Because as a newly raised Master Mason, the world is open to you. The Masonic world is open to you. And you don't know where to go. Unless you got to a lodge that has a really strong mentorship program, or you had already a strong mentor and maybe a father figure, or, maybe you talked to some of the guys that you saw like online with a podcast like this or the various other ones that are out there. Because a lot of us are on social media and you can reach out to us and just be like, hey, I like what you did. What do you recommend? Okay. And I've done that on TikTok. I've gotten guys who are not Masons, heard me talk about the conspiracies and go, hey, where'd you learn that? I have a gentleman right now in Illinois. He'll never become a Mason, and that's fine. I don't care. He's not anti-Mason. He's actually very involved with charity and asked me if I could contact someone in Illinois Grand Lodge to help with the charity that he runs. But he wants to know how it ties together with some of the conspiracies that he deals with, being a Norse pagan.
It's not something you hear every day. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Exactly. The symbiotic relationship between the two of us is awesome. But that's one of those things is find a mentor, whether it be in the physical sense of someone at your lodge or your family, or find someone online that could give you good and wholesome advice, as we say.
That's a fantastic example. And I love that story. And I find your world on social media, especially TikTok, a lot different than mine, where you have guys taking what you say and then stitching themselves right into it. And then my favorite is when you stitch yourself on the other side of it to straighten this back out. That's not what I said. But for me, kind of using that ocean analogy, and we can just kind of play around with this one a little bit. When I became a Master Mason and I was told, hey, everything you want to know about Freemasonry is at your disposal. And it was like being a kid the first time growing up in San Diego and going to the beach and just seeing how far the coastline goes. You're like, wow, it goes on forever. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like as a Master Mason. And then once you become the master of your lodge or you get into Freemasonry, it's like me now being a scuba diver. It's like, how deep can you get into Freemasonry?
Oh, yeah.
Years later, after reading Brother Hammer's Observing the Craft book, I got a chance to meet him as a brother here in the District of Columbia. And we talked about how Masons go from lodges to kind of forming groups, and some of them even form lodges around the style or the practice of Masonry that they want to work on, which is really working the way of the craft and then the truest sense of it. And I guess the thing for me is that as a brother through all of this, it has made me feel less alone to know that there's others that walk in and feel like I'm not getting everything. Because this is the other thing that kind of prompted me to want to have this conversation with you is in one of your TikTok videos, you were talking about, basically as a marketing person, I'd say, what's the unique value proposition of being a Freemasonry? Like, what's so special about it? What's the value of it? And knowing that there's other guys that are out there around the country and the world that are all reading these ritual books, learning this stuff, going to lodges, trying to live by a certain code, reading other things that are foreign to them and taking it in, and it's becoming part of your DNA, it's becoming part of your knowledge base. And then again, the connections, the networking that you're having with other like-minded men, you do not feel as alone in this great, big, beautiful world as you will without it.
Oh, no, absolutely not. And I keep hearkening back to TikTok because apparently that's where everyone thinks I'm from.
No, I know you're from New Jersey. The land of shouting out the window.
More than shouting.
Yeah.
Come, drive on the parkway this time. Anyway, I have been podcasting on and off for 15 years. I started with my friends back in 2010. Just life podcasting type thing. No general direction. And from there, I realized the power of the internet because people from literally India would reach out because they wanted to hear about the American experience. And one of the biggest fans of our podcast was an Indian gentleman who happened to also work in America, but like he only flew over here to do like little things. And then he went back to his company over there.
Dude, if you said lodge meeting, I would have fallen over. That would have been amazing. That's dedication.
No. We did have a brother from India visit us though. That was really cool. But like, he just wanted to hear about American life, and he just wanted to chit chat with us, through messaging or comments on our show or whatnot. And then having joined Masonry, and being a part of the social media experiment that it is, whether it be on the Facebook groups or doing a podcast with my own lodge mates, or being with you, or being with Winding Stairs, or any of the other multitude of Masonic shows out there, it just goes to exemplify the universality of Masonry. Like, TikTok introduced me to Masons from New Zealand. New Zealand has all three constitutions: English, Irish, and Scottish. 3 all in agreement Grand Lodges that you could be part of each one of these constitutions and have a completely separate Masonic experience all within that little island. And then going further than that, finding that this brother not only is a Master Mason and has done similar things, but like we're also dads. We're also fathers of autistic children. We're going through the same stuff. We can, even though we're literally a time zone apart, a day apart technically, we can communicate on a similar level. Another great example, when you're a new Master Mason, you don't know about the other Mason, be it Prince Hall or Grand Lodge Estate. You just hear about, there was a racial divide. Why? Why was there? Where does it come from? How does my experience differ from their experience? And meeting brothers like Brother Damien Jack, who actually is one of the co-hosts of the Prince Hall Think Tank podcast, listening to him and hearing about the experiences and how much more strict they are and how proud they are to be Prince Hall Masons is incredible. And I've, within the last couple of months, I've kind of just like slid into their side of the algorithm because they inspire me so much. They inspire me to be not only a no-nonsense Mason, but a no-nonsense individual. Like, you're not going to come onto my little sphere of influence and try and play that either bogus Masonry or that conspiracy stuff. I'm not there for it.
He's New Jersey's favorite Freemason, ours too, Worshipful Brother Metal Jew. He is also the only guest on the Craftsman Online podcast that has his own intro music, which I can't play for you right now, but when you hear this in its full produced version, you'll be like, this rocks. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. It's going to be metal. You know it's going to be metal.
If I don't hear Slayer. No.
Definitely not Slayer.
I know.
You're also one of the deeper thinkers, and that's what I love having you on the podcast for. Again, you can find Metal Drew, that's his handle, on Instagram, TikTok, that's where I'm on social media, and everywhere else that he is. And as he mentioned, yes, there are other Masonic podcasts out there, and he's often a frequent guest there. Why? Because he's good. And one of the things that we've talked about is Jacob Ernst and the philosophy of Freemasonry. And in that, he wrote that Masonry should help us, quote, identify and develop our strengths. And this can kind of be a challenge. Let's go back to being in the East and kind of in that mindset. Most lodge meetings are kind of focused on, was the opening good? Okay, and then there's this business meeting that happens, and then was the closing good? And sometimes the Masonic education portion can be an afterthought, right? So if we started a new rule, and this is a challenge I'm going to throw out to you, without a PowerPoint deck, how would you, if you were told, hey, Drew, you're going to be sitting in the East as the guest master at our next meeting of the lodge, how would you bring in something that you've learned outside of the lodge, inside with your brothers? And what got me thinking about this was our discussion with Franklin Ring, brother Franklin Rings, on how metalheads all connect to the music, and there's like this community that exists between them.
So, okay, I'll point to an example that's more recent to me. Being a part of TikTok, obviously, you start to get little splinter groups that happen, and like you'll get Discord channels or WhatsApp messenger groups and everything that you form with these brothers that you meet online. And a brother that I met online, along with some other brothers, got together and we just started, talking back and forth. And they brought up the idea of Dungeons and Dragons.
That would be awesome.
Nothing to do with Stranger Things, so keep that. That's not no. More to do with Baldur's Gate because we're all gamers. They asked me to be the dungeon master because they liked the way that I enunciate things and how I spoke. And they wanted me to do and make a campaign based around the third degree.
So can I ask a question? So I love this idea. So this idea of a D&D style presentation, would you be the campaign, for lack of a better term, that you would be building? Would it be like exploring the Hiramic legend, like being a character?
That's all. See, that's the beauty of it, is you can absolutely do that. What we were planning on doing was making it, yes, the Hiramic legend, having the player characters go to different towns, having the ruffians, two of them eventually become the bad guys. You didn't know that in the beginning. And then the last ruffian being what we call in the community the BBGE, the big bad evil guy, as the final boss, and like creating a story based around that with these characters who are not part of the Hiramic legend. They're just random, typical D&D. Yeah, you got an elf, you got a dwarf, blah blah blah, and that's just our take. And I know there's brothers out there who've probably already done this, and I'm not new to this concept, but like they've done it, and they've probably done it. Like maybe they've done it with the Fellowcraft degree, and you're actually walking up a flight of stairs, and something's happening for that flight of stairs.
All right, hold on. Shameless plug here. We did do a Dungeons and Dragons and Freemasonry episode with a past master of my lodge here in DC, Worshipful Brother Jason Lee. But we did not, and I can't believe we didn't explore this area. So if there is any brother listening or someone knows of a lodge that has done this, please, it's podcast@craftsmanonline.com. That's my email address. No, I'm not joking. I want to talk to this person, and I want to do a whole episode about this campaign and like get into it. Podcast@craftsmanonline.com. Thank you. So here's the thing. I do see it as also a negative thing. Like if we're not teaching these guys in a lodge, then there's a potential that we could miss a generation. But I think there's also a positive thing about that. And it's a really, you're going to have to follow me for a couple steps here. And I'm seeing it now. And I'm not saying that my generation didn't benefit from good and wholesome instructors, because, that would be I would be looking up to the boomers. Those are the ones before my generation. I think we are close to the same age, so we might be in that same boat. But what I'm seeing now is like the millennials that are coming in, right? And they're asking us pointed, philosophical, deeper, more researched, more truths.
Not even the millennials. I'll give it to Gen Z that's
Also,
coming in
yeah.
now. We have. I just did a committee of investigation on a gentleman who just finished his bachelor's in physics and is going for his master's and possibly an undergraduate program in it. Now, his father is a New York Mason. They live now they live in New Jersey, but like he was coming at me and the other two members of the committee with some really good questions and kind of esoteric. Like he was trying to connect Manly P. Hall or Arthur Edward Waite to actual physics. And I'm like, that's a really cool thing. I don't know. Let's go look it up.
Bingo. That's where I feel like that's where we're going to go, because it'll either start with the I don't know, let's find out together, or it will say, well, our ritual explains it this way, but let's go learn where it came from in this place.
It kind of goes along with me saying you have to become uncomfortable. You have to remove your ego. And we talk about that symbolically throughout all the degrees, but it really is hard for a mentor or a teacher to go, I don't know, but they do. Go talk to them. And the least you could ask for is that group of people, that person, whomever, says, hey, thanks for sending that guy over. Let go of your ego. Ego death has to happen.
Thanks again to my guest this week, worshipful brother Metal Drew. Oh, no. This conversation is not over. As I teased in the beginning, we've got almost a whole nother episode for our subscribers on Patreon that drops Thursday morning. You want to listen to it? You can. Go ahead and sign up if you're not already following us on Patreon. You can just get the free 7-day trial and get more of me and Metal Drew talking about Masonic education and trying to fill that void that sometimes gets left in Lodge on Patreon. It's just $5 a month if you decide to join us. Ad-free episodes and, of course, access to the full back catalog of extra episodes with some of our favorite guests. I'm Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. You know I'm always looking forward to our next conversation. And on Monday, we are bringing back the most listened to Craftsman Online podcast guest for 2025. Worshipful Brother Nathan St. Pierre. We're going to hop into the time machine and travel back to the year 1843 to visit the Baltimore Convention and learn more about this first attempt at unity in the craft. Until next time, let peace and harmony prevail.